well, financially, it doesn't seem to be a form that is dying at all. So, but Iron Man, for example, is being turned into a feature-length animation film by Warner Brothers, and the way that modern feature-length animation films are being made is they're being made like Hollywood musicals of the 50s.
Uh-huh.
And that's the only place where they can use those techniques. It's like you couldn't make Singing in the Rain today, but you could if you turned it into a cartoon.
Huh, maybe you could simplify that for me. What connects those two art forms? What connects musicals from the 50s and animation now?
Well, the new genre of feature-length animated films, the new batch of them from, I suppose, Little Mermaid onwards, were conceived in Disney by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, who were two Broadway theatre writers. And they produced Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and started on Lion King. And so those and I suppose Pocahontas is one of the same kind of thing. So what they're actually doing is they're using the laws and rules of musical comedy in order to create story and dynamic for animation. In other words, the characters keep bursting into song. And you can't do that in movies anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
But you can in cartoons. So I am very interested in that. In fact, a lot of, like Elton John, for example, is working in that area.
Right.
With Tim Rice, they've just done Aida.
You feel comfortable watching like an hour and 45 minutes of cartoons, though? Is it?
Do I feel comfortable watching it?
Yeah.
I don't have to watch it. I just have to write it.
Okay. But as an aesthetic statement, it's not exactly your cup of tea, then.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I grew up with this stuff, like so many people did. I'm not sure that I'm entirely clear about what my aesthetic statement is or needs to be. I think that's one of the things that perhaps I have to look at on a regular basis. Is, when I start to write something, is to ask myself, why am I writing this? What is it that I want to say? This is not a question that I asked myself very often when I was writing for The Who, or indeed as a solo artist. I just thought, well, I'll write a bunch of songs and chuck them out and see what happens. And these days, I think what's really important for me is not just that I'm writing something and I understand what it is that I'm writing or why I'm writing it, but it's more important that I enjoy the process rather than the end result. So when you ask me the question, do I enjoy sitting through 90 minutes of animated musical feature, my response is that I don't think that it matters. I think what matters is that if I work on a 90-minute musical feature, I should enjoy it. I should be happy while I'm doing it, because Iron Man, for example, is going to be 4 years of work. I must enjoy the process.
Right.
I mustn't do what I did in The Who, which is to be out on the road with them for 10 years and hate every fucking minute of it.
Okay, well, what about one of the more famous examples, the movie Quadrophenia? What did you think of the end product?
Well, I didn't have very much to do with that, but I think it's a good film. It's a capable British, what we call a good little film in the UK.
Okay. Fair enough. Just moving back a couple of paragraphs here, maybe you could explain in a little more detail what exactly goes into the remixing process. You said that the remixing of Quadrophenia, for example, has improved it immensely. How is it different now than it was then, and what sort of different decisions are you making now in that actual process?
Well, in actual fact, we're not making any different decisions. We're copying what I did, but we're working with better monitor speakers, better mastering techniques at the end. In other words, the original multi-track tapes, which were recorded by The Who in the studio, sounded pretty good when we played them back. what didn't sound pretty good were the mixes, the actual end result, the CDs, the vinyl albums, the things that the public bought didn't sound as good as what we heard in the studio.
Ah, okay. Uh-huh.
What you can do today is you can really greatly approach what people heard in the studio, because the final chain is much purer. I remember when I mastered Quadrophenia in Los Angeles, MCA Records, who were releasing it there, asked for a number of copies of the copy masters to send out to duplicating plants to make cassettes, and I worked it out that some of the commercial cassettes that people were then buying, because CDs hadn't been invented then, were up to 8 generations old.
Mm-hmm.
They were copies of 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 copies.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, it was pretty crappy.
Mm-hmm.
And that the mastering that we were doing in LA was not good enough. Was not going to serve Japan or Germany or South America or Australia. That what we had to send to those countries were copy tapes, from which they would then make their own master copies.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would often do is, when they received their copy masters, is they would regard that copy master as their sacred master and make a copy of it, from which they would master the albums.
Mm-hmm.
So all these kind of things that were going on meant that but the main thing is that I think I fucked the thing up in the studio. I was just exhausted.
Uh-huh. I see. So we're just hearing a clearer version now. That's basically the only difference.
I think, a much clearer. And it's very important, because what somehow happened on the original is that the vocal performance got lost somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was some kind of phase problem. I don't know.
How about the Isle of Wight festival video that I think that will be coming out soon? Why is that coming out now? And is that a particularly a live format you're particularly proud of?
It's all right. I don't have any strong views about it particularly. I mean, I think it's coming out because we just found it.
Ah, where was it?
It was in my warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
But we also found Jimi Hendrix.
Uh-huh.
Marked up as the Who.
Yet another Jimi Hendrix tape emerges.
Yeah. Although the movie of Jimi Hendrix and the soundtrack in mono has already been released, we found the 8-track masters.
Okay.
And they've been mislabeled as the Who.
Okay.
So when I found the Who's tapes, we also found the Jimi Hendrix ones. So that was nice. And a few other people too, Joni Mitchell and a couple of other the acts on the Isle of Wight Festival. The Who's performance is pretty good, I think. It's one of the best of the time.
Are there a lot of these goodies kicking around in warehouses and people's...
Well, we only have one warehouse, and it's not very big, and it's next to my house, and we think we catalogue everything very, very carefully, but, with a lot of things we trust what is in the box is what it says is in the box. And in this case, it was just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't only that it was labelled wrongly. It wasn't labelled as the Isle of Wight. So we found it by accident. We were looking for something else. I think we may have even been looking for Quadrophenia masters.
Mm-hmm. Lifehouse. Has that project ever come to fruition?
Well, if it had done, I'm sure you would have known about it. No, I just had a script meeting with somebody. I'm fiddling around with it. I'm fiddling around with it all the time. I can't let it go. I'm really enamored with it, but I'm finding it very difficult to make it work.
It's something that you couldn't make work with the Who, right?
I couldn't make it work with the Who simply because I was being far too ambitious. But what I'm finding now is that I'm finding it difficult to make it work because I think times have changed. Some of the ideas which were very far-reaching and quite sort of smart, back in 1971, are now a wee bit passé.
Mm.
So, but the general idea is one which I still feel passionate about. But,
mm-hmm. What do you think it's going to take to bring this thing to fruition?
You know, I think I have to sit down and fucking write the thing properly. You know, I'm working with another writer, and what actually happened in this conference is that I realised that I hadn't explained a number of